West, in particular France, Belgium, and USA. And the question is why? What do they look for in Africa? We know it's because of the mineral resources that we have. Look at anywhere in Africa where there's a conflict. It's either there's minerals or there's oil. Two things, oil or minerals. In Congo DRC's case, we know there's huge resources of gold, diamond, and copper. It so happens that Zambia shares the same rock of copper underground, extends into Congo, into Katanga. So they want our minerals. And to do it, how do they do it? They divide and rule us. They divide countries against countries. Then they divide citizens against citizens. From one province to another. They dig into our tribal differences of ethnicism and make us fight against each other. They sponsor. And that is what is happening. A rich country like DRC Congo has hardly seen peace. If you look at the Gini coefficient ratio, most people are in abject poverty. Same as Zambia, same as elsewhere. Wherever there's mineral, you find the majority are poor. And yet you have a few imperialists. We obtained a lot of political independence in Africa, but we're still enslaved economically. They still hold our minerals, and they still hold our oil. Wherever there's a coup, just know it's the oil or gold at play. Until Belgium, France, USA, the East stay away of Africa business, stay away from our gold, stay away from our diamond, stay away from our oil, Africa is hardly going to see peace.
We are a continent that we want to move to create employment for our people, to have infrastructural development. This is our own problem. I don't think EU can have such a power to stop the process that is going on in Uganda.
A huge amount of oil and gas has been discovered in our country. And we have made tremendous and enormous investments in this sector. All investment and feasibility studies have already been done. And we are now in the process of installing our refinery and also building a line, a pipeline that would evacuate oil from Uganda up to Tanga, which is at the seaport. Mr. President, in the process, recently the European Union passed a resolution holding Uganda from investing in the refinery and also in the construction of the line. Their argument was that in Uganda, the pipeline is going to pass in the forest reserve. That will disturb the peace of the elephants and animals. So in that case, Uganda should not do it because it's going to affect the peace of the animals in the forest. So in this respect, they were also saying that the European Union should stop Uganda from doing it because it will affect the carbon emission. And I wonder, because some of the countries emit more than 27%, but there are no sanctions against them. For example, America emits more than 27% of green gas emission, but there is no sanction against those countries. Even in the European countries, their contribution to green gas emission is more than 26%, but there is no sanction against them. They have never stopped them from investing in fossil oil. We want to appeal to this parliament to come to our support, to support Africa's development, because this is not only on Uganda. This is covering the entire Africa. They don't want us to invest in green gas, and yet this investment can change the lives of our people. For example, we are going to get billions of dollars, and this money can be invested in education, be invested in the research, be invested in the infrastructure development, and it will improve the livelihood of our people. And this project being stopped, it will affect the development and the process of empowering our own people.
Africa has the right to use its natural resources. It needs to employ its young people, and the African Union as well as this parliament has to support and stand behind Uganda to use its natural resource and pass a resolution.
We should not even debate on this motion.
let Uganda go ahead. Let them attack.
Thank you. I wish to support the motion. Africa must resist any attempts by the West to stop us from exploiting our resources for the benefit of our people. They can only do that because they want to exploit our resources themselves to sustain their jobs in their continent. We resist that, and we are no longer going to allow this kind of exploitation from the West.
There is no way that climate change agenda can be used to stop our development as Africa. We cannot allow it. Right now in Sharm el-Sheikh, they are debating the question of who must pay for the pollution that was occasioned on this planet. And if we have to submit to the Western powers to say elephants are now more important, which elephants we have kept on this continent, unlike in Europe where they have destroyed all life of animals, our own elephants for that matter, we should not allow that to happen. Conservation is not superior to human health, human well-being. Climate change agenda is not superior to our aspirations to make sure that our life and that of our future generations is secured and taken care of. So Uganda, you have our support.
The European Parliament raised something very critical to the people of Uganda, and that is the violation of human rights. Uganda is a sovereign country. So is Africa as a continent. There is no way, honourable members, we can accept the European Union to give us directions on our own natural resources. This particular project is going to answer the most important questions the continent has been suffering, especially the socio-economic transformation, the issues that we are having like unemployment. I want to tell you that it is going to benefit the entire African continent. We should never at any moment in time accept the European Union to give us any direction to our own resources where we have full powers and sovereignty.
Peoples in Africa waged wars of resistance against violent dispossession of their land and their natural resources. The African monarchs who led these wars were defeated and their people were enslaved and colonized. For more than a century, African people waged wars of national liberation for the achievement of political, social, and economic self-determination. African people, with the exception of the Sahrawi Republic, have achieved their right of political self-determination, but it also condemns imperialist and neo-imperialist forces who finance, arm, and instigate terrorism and violent extremism in Mozambique and in other parts of Africa. I want to call on African governments and people to reawaken to the fact that the conflicts, unconstitutional changes, and terrorist attacks in Africa are part of the struggle of the imperialist and neo-imperialist forces for the control of African natural resources. I submit that Africa cannot and will not achieve peace and security until we end foreign ownership of our land and natural resources by foreigners. Africans must regain ownership of their land and natural resources and develop the capacity to beneficiate them and market the product for the benefit of Africans, not foreigners. The AU must condemn the European imperialist and neo-imperialist forces for their instigation and support of unconstitutional changes and terrorism in Africa, which impede the human, social, and economic development of the continent, so that the UN adopts a new resolution on African control of her land and natural resources.